an investor doing things on your own? How about someone working with a firm that isn't so responsive or in sync with your investment philosophy? My podcast talks you through all things financial. Look, there's stuff you don't deal with very often, but investments, insurance, and retirement is something we plan for each and every day. This is the PennyWise Financial Podcast, and welcome to the show. All right, welcome to the PennyWise Financial Podcast. Constantine here at Monarch Wealth Management in upstate New York, joined by my co-host today, Dave Georgiev, and he's going to introduce our guest.
Yes, good morning. I feel like we've done this before. We are welcoming our good friend, and I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up, Navy SEAL veteran, law enforcement officer, anti-human trafficking, CEO of Covenant Rescue Group, political outsider running for the United States Senate in Alabama, and most importantly, Christ follower, Jared Hudson. Jared, welcome to the show, brother.
That's it. You got it, brother. Christ follower, Jared Hudson. You know, he must increase, I must decrease. Most important thing.
Amen. Amen, brother. Well, welcome to the show, Jared.
Welcome.
We want to start off. It's crazy that two financial advisors in upstate New York and some dude in Alabama, some Navy SEAL guy running for Senate. How did we all get together? Can you give us the brief summary of how this thing even works?
Please tell us.
Yeah. So, and Dave, stop me if I get something wrong, right? I think we mentioned that when we were trying to do this earlier. But long story short, buddy of mine, Jonathan Macklin, has an organization, Archangel Group International. And so AGI asked for myself and Mike Rebels, who is retired now because he's 452,000 years old. He's a law enforcement officer here in Alabama and good friend of mine, and he was our chief training officer for Covenant Rescue Group at the time. And we do a lot of anti-human trafficking work stateside, although we've done work in Haiti and some other sub-Saharan African countries, but our primary focus is here in the United States of America. Jonathan Macklin, who I got introduced to through some buddies within the church that I've known for a while that support our organization and what we do. They said, hey, in Zambia, Jonathan Macklin is looking to take his organization, AGI, and start impacting human trafficking. And I think they did wells and they did some economic relief sort of things with his organization, but they were looking to get into human trafficking. And that's one of the biggest things. If you want to impact human trafficking, doesn't matter if it's stateside or around the world, you impact the economic issues that you're seeing in the community, right? As a law enforcement officer, I've seen that with criminal enterprise. We have to make sure that we impact economic issues. You teach a person to fish and you feed them for a lifetime, then they're not forced to go into anything like nefarious, like selling themselves or selling their kids or their grandkids or whatever. Absolutely. And it's a scriptural principle. I'll go to it really quickly. By the way, it says, "Lord, don't give me so much that I forget who you are and I don't honor you. Don't give me so little that I have to steal to feed myself and my family and I dishonor your name through theft. Give me what I need." And Jesus says that, "Give me this day my daily bread." So that is what his organization was working on. Give us this day our daily bread. Wells, economic relief for food, and all the issues that you see going on in Zambia. And that tied them into human trafficking. And Jonathan had a law enforcement background, so that it was very interesting to him to get involved in human trafficking. He asked us to come over and help. Yeah. So our organization voted and approved, hey, yeah, we're going to go and support AGI to see if we can help with human trafficking in Zambia. And in that process, that's how we met up. Now, the funniest thing to hear Macklin talk, man, Dave, you and Cameron, like y'all were old boys. Y'all had known each other. I'm like, how in the world does he know these guys out of New York that are some, finance guys in New York? Like y'all were friends for a lifetime to hear him talk. And on the other side of it, tell me if I'm wrong, the way that you thought that, me and Mike had been friends with J-Mac for a lifetime. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. So the way that
some old Alabama boys making the magic happen.
Yeah. And so when we went, the first time I met Jared and Mike and J-Mac, first time was in South Africa. So then we had to fly to Zambia after. So
we didn't even meet here on American soil.
First time.
The first time we met, and for us, it's the first real thing we'd ever done. I met Jonathan Macklin come to my office a few times, and I talked with him, and I gotten to know him over the phone, really, and then him coming down and knowing a few guys. But we didn't weren't really close. Like we didn't, know each other that well.
Yeah.
And we meet these guys, and Matt gets up and goes to the bathroom. They're like, hey man, so how long y'all know Mac? We're like, oh man, we just met him, like 2 months ago, and our organization decided to support. They're like, are you serious? We thought y'all known him for a long time. We're like, wait, how long have y'all known Mac? They're like, this is the first time we met him. And they were like, we thought that they knew him forever. So it was Jonathan Macklin and AGI that connected us originally. Now I will tell you this: Dave and Cameron looked like a bunch of bootleg youth pastors showing up into South Africa. They didn't even look like operators. They looked like they're like walking around their khakis and their little flat soled shoes. And I'm like, oh man, these guys right here.
Well, on the flip side though, so we go up to the table. They're already eating dinner. Our flight got in after them. It's the first time we're meeting, Jared and Mike. He's big old, like I think Mike was Army veteran, if I'm not mistaken. Jared.
He is, yeah.
And then you got Jared, who's Navy SEAL. So these big, like, meathead guys, and like, you want to talk about intimidating, walking up to this table, and you're like, oh man, these guys might be like big tough jerks, And within like
just a bunch of goofballs.
Yeah, within like 10 minutes, they're laughing and joking, telling us about their families and stuff. And it's God ordained in my opinion, because of the fact that like when we went to Zambia, we were in tight quarters. We had a small vehicle. There's a whole bunch of dudes just like crammed in here. And so like instantly.
Dudes on top of dudes, bro.
Yeah, it was a mess, man. And it just
clown car.
It vibed. Yeah, because there was another car full of people. And after a while, the four of us would like quickly run into one vehicle. So like we all drove together and the other people drove in the other car.
Clown car.
So, yeah, it was a clown car.
Yeah, it was, man. Dude, Dave hit this. Was it Cameron or you driving, Dave?
Cameron was driving.
Cameron hit this speed bump that's about as big as this desk in front of me. And I broke my neck once when I was in the SEAL teams, and it hurt when I did it. And I never got it checked, but I'm pretty sure that I broke my neck a second time because he hit this speed bump doing about 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And of course we're not wearing seatbelts or anything. I mean, we're in Zambia, right?
Yeah.
Brother, my head hit the roof of that, and I felt like my entire spinal column collapsed. I felt like I was going to throw up for the rest of the ride.
Yeah,
dude, 100%, man.
It was brutal.
But that's how we met, in Zambia, Africa. Y'all were working, obviously, your orphanage that you have there and everything that you have going on. I don't know how much we can or can't talk about that, but we're able to meet y'all in that process and see the ministry that y'all have going on and that you're a part of. And then was able to work with AGI and see how we could impact it from our end with Covenant Rescue Group.
Yeah.
So that's how we originally met.
So was that a couple years ago or?
Yeah, that was maybe like 2023,
2022, 2023 timeframe. Yeah.
Right around then, after COVID.
I think it was 2022 into 2023. Is that correct? It was like
that's right
at the end of December and the beginning of January timeframe. Because wasn't it New Year's? Were we there during New Year's? Yes. Or was it right after New Year's?
No, it was New Year's because I remember waking up and you could hear fireworks going off in Lusaka. We were down in the capital city of Lusaka in Zambia.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, 2022 into 2023.
Yeah. So with that though, you said Covenant Rescue Group. You were there for Covenant Rescue Group, kind of representing them. Tell us a little bit about Covenant Rescue Group, what it's all about. What do you guys do?
Yeah. So long story short, when I left the SEAL teams, I became a law enforcement officer here in the state of Alabama, and I'm a federal task force officer with Homeland Security. And we work human trafficking. I'm still an investigator that works human trafficking investigations and a SWAT deputy here. So my primary focus, whether at the sheriff's office or as a task force officer for Homeland Security, has been child exploitation. We started Covenant Rescue Group because we saw a need for anti-human traffic work here in the continental U.S. And that starts by training law enforcement agencies at the local level how to proactively go after. We're looking to not have any Fourth or Sixth Amendment violations so we can proactively go after human trafficking. For us here, for every individual showing up to purchase a little boy, there are 150 victims in their wake before they're prosecuted. For every individual showing up to purchase a little girl, there are 50 victims in their wake before they're prosecuted. So our end goal is a successful probable cause arrest without any constitutional violations, because that leads to a successful prosecution in whatever state or jurisdiction that we're working in. And so that's primarily what we do. We train local agencies on how to proactively target human trafficking. And then we set up a live operation with them. So we set up that operation and we kind of oversee it. And this comes from the military as a combat advisor role, right? Whether like when I was in the SEAL teams or Ground Branch does this a lot, but you do kind of a combat advisor role where you train a foreign force, right? Foreign internal defense. You train a foreign force on how to run operations and go and fight the bad guys. And then you have a handful of operators that go on that operation with them and oversee them actually conducting an operation. We've taken that same concept and we do that with local law enforcement. And it's been very successful. It's just like last week, I think it was last week or the week before last, actually, Greenville, South Carolina, we arrested 11. I'll send you all the news link. And it was Greenville that made that arrest. It was the county and their partnership there on their task force that made those arrests and those prosecutions. But we ran the training for them for a week. And then we stayed and ran the operation. We currently have operations going on right now. I can hear my people walking behind me in the office up and down the hallways, getting ready to go to another location and run training in an operation this week. So we do this all over the United States of America at the local level primarily, so we can teach agencies how to actually proactively go after human trafficking. And that's what we do with Covenant Rescue Group. It's no cost to the agency.
So it's a collaborative effort then. And I'm just thinking of jurisdiction. What gives you the right to go in and do this?
Oh, yeah, no. So you partner with the agency, right? It's John Locke, right? In the second treatise of government, the closest form of government to the people is the most effective form of government. And that's what we're trying to do. If you want to impact human trafficking, you have to impact it at the local level. The state is even getting too large. The feds are definitely too large. It's very difficult to impact it at the higher levels. You've got to get down in the community, in the jurisdiction you're working in, so you can successfully go after individuals who are ultimately buying and selling kids. Because when you find them, that's where you find real victims. 30% of the individuals, if we arrest 10, 3 of them are going to have a real victim tied to them at that point in time. And the local agency being able to get in and do those investigations helps out with that. And where the feds become involved, or where the state at a higher level becomes involved, is when you start finding victims, you start finding child pornography, you start finding child pornography production and distribution, and the feds are able to run that out and go beyond the jurisdiction of just that local agency. But the only way that you have the probable cause to tap into it on the front end is by the style of operations we teach that local agency how to do.
Jared, real quick, because you say this stuff so fast because you do this for a living, can you go back to some stats that you first started with a young boy, like 50 times, 100
Yeah.
times?
So when it comes to child exploitation, for every individual, and these statistics you get off RAINN.org, they're DOJ and American Psychiatric Association statistics from interviewing kids, but essentially it boils down to this. This is kind of your average. Every individual showing up to purchase a little boy, there are 150 victims in their wake until they're prosecuted. Not until they're arrested, not until they're caught by the pedo hunters and beat up and, made to drink their own pee, or all that stuff you can see on Instagram, right? We've all seen that. And that's great. I'm glad we're beating these guys up. The problem is you just make them smarter. I'm a deer hunter, or I fish. If y'all fish, you don't keep fishing the same hole over and over and over again with the same lure. Why? Because the fish get smart to it. They get lips where they stop biting. Same thing with deer hunting. I don't keep shooting bucks off of the same field, because what happens? They get smart to it. It's the same thing with these guys. If they show up and they get caught, they're not going to stop.
Yeah.
They just get smart to it. So in the United States of America, we have a law enforcement system that requires a successful probable cause arrest. Once you make that arrest, now we have probable cause to obtain warrants as outlined in the U.S. Constitution, and we need to get a successful prosecution that is going to go before a court of that individual's peer, a jury of that individual's peers, and we can't have a hung jury. We've got to make sure that we have a case where the jury looks at us and says, holy cow, they caught this guy who was buying kids, and we need to get a successful prosecution. Those are the two ends of law enforcement we have to work. So we want a successful prosecution. They're showing up for a little boy. There are 150 victims in their wake before they're successfully prosecuted. If they're showing up for a little girl, there are 50 victims in their wake before they're successfully prosecuted. And I'll give you one more that I didn't give you earlier. 93% of children that are exploited by familia-based exploitation. 46% of the time, it's somebody that's a person of trust, a coach, a teacher, a a pastor at church, a law enforcement officer, somebody that child should trust. And 37% of the time, it's a family member of that child. It's somebody who's like mother, father, aunt, uncle, brother, or sister.
That's incredible.
And so that's your 93% of child exploitation is familial based. So in order to break into that, it's not criminal enterprise like everybody thinks, like the cartels are stealing kids. This does happen, but it's only that 7% of the time. But in order to break into that, you have to have probable cause. We build probable cause off of the 7% of the time that an individual is showing up for a random child. I'll give you a real world example. It's anecdotal, but this is the best way to describe what we teach and how it works. We had a guy show up to purchase a 14-year-old girl. He was showing up to purchase her. We arrest him. And when we make the arrest, we now are going to have a successful, we got probable cause to get warrants. We rip the data off of his phone and we find thousands of images of child porn that come to find out this guy was producing. He was having sex with his own 18-month-old daughter. And he was producing that child. He was with his own 18-month-old daughter. Yeah, that's the youngest that I've seen is 18 months. He was producing it and he was selling it. Right. So now it's production and distribution. That's where the feds get involved. That's where the FBI is unbelievably good at what they do, because then they were able to run and track with that. And now they have a reason to adopt a case because they have successful probable cause arrest that's made at the local level. And so that's what I mean when I say you have to break that cycle. And we got him for the random 7% of the time that it's not familiar based.
Yeah.
But in that process, we found a little girl who was being impacted in an unbelievable way. And her mother didn't even know. That's the other thing. Like when we sit down and do these forensic interviews, you can find out who does and doesn't know. They didn't have a clue.
That's crazy. I mean, like literally.
So it's not always what everybody thinks, like kids getting sold on Epstein Island or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It just happens a very rare amount of the time. The kids that Jeffrey Epstein impacted, or the young women that Jeffrey Epstein impacted, either they were at risk. They either didn't have parents or they had parents that allowed that to happen to them. That's generally what we see.
Sure.
Again, 93% of the time.
Sure. And so you also said, just to kind of wrap this segment up, you said that to offer your services as Covenant Rescue Group to other law enforcement offices around the country, it doesn't cost them anything.
Doesn't cost them a single dollar. Now, we have some agencies, like larger agencies, that will want to pay for stuff because they have a budget or they have a grant that deals with that, some of the larger agencies we've worked with. But with that being said, our job is to fundraise, to pay for this training for the local agencies who ultimately can't afford it. That's our goal, right? We'll work with any agencies we can, but most agencies can't afford it. But definitely those smaller local agencies where they might only have 30 officers, they might only have 60 sheriff's deputies, like where I'm sworn at, where in Blount County, Alabama, as a Blount County sheriff's deputy, we have 60 sheriff's deputies. I don't even know if we have 60 that are working countywide. We like to work, and that is the vast majority of your police jurisdictions across the nation. 18,000 police jurisdictions, plus or minus 10%. And these guys don't have the ability to proactively go after human trafficking, and they don't have the skill, certain knowledge, and they don't have the money to do it. So we help support them in that way.
Speaking of money, how are these organizations moving money around? Do you know?
What do you mean? What organizations?
So if they're purchasing children or whatever, paying for, is it all cash?
I mean, it's cash. What's the like Cash App and any of the digital way of paying? They'll do it in Venmo. Yeah, I mean, it's not very hard to do, but yeah, a lot of times it's cash, and a lot of times, we'll get a guy to show up and pay for a girl. And it depends on where you're at, on whether they let this stick. Again, we want a successful prosecution, but hey, pay me, bring a case of White Claw. And because that's what a 14-year-old girl who's selling herself would probably, that might ask for, right? Hey, we want some White Claws. So the guy shows up with some White Claws. So I say all that to say it just depends on what you're doing, where you're at, how they want to pay. And there are some girls that have gotten really smart, and what they'll do is they'll get these guys to send them, money digitally, like Cash App or something. and they'll say, hey, look, I'll come to you, but I need $50 for gas, right? Gas is expensive right now. I need $50 for gas. Some dude will send her $50 and then she'll be done. She'll ghost him and won't even show up. I'm like, good for these chicks, man. They're making $1,000, $1,500 a night.
Yeah.
just extorting these idiots that are trying to buy them,
Yeah. Rightfully so. Good.
So we do see a lot of that.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh, I mean, and you guys are doing a great job. We came down a couple years ago for your golf tournament and got to see kind of behind the curtain how you guys run your operation. You guys really do some amazing work, and we're happy to continue to kind of sponsor you guys as well and help support you when we can as well. So keep it up.
And thank you, brother.
Yes.
Great work.
Transitioning a little bit, let's talk about the elephant in the room, United States Senate. Jared, how's it going, brother?
It's going good. God has blessed us tremendously. There's 67 counties in the state of Alabama. I've had the benefit of working in a lot of those on these human trafficking operations, but we've gone to all 67 counties now on the campaign side, running on a Alabama First program. Obviously, being a senator from Alabama, I'm supposed to deliver for the state of Alabama so that we can deliver for the United States of America. And that has resonated greatly with the people. And it always starts with my faith. Everybody in Alabama is a Christian, right? Everybody in Alabama during political season says, oh, I'm a Christian, and they run on that. I always have to qualify what that means. So everywhere I go, I say, hey, I'm a Christian. I'm a born-again believer in the person of Jesus Christ. He's Lord and Savior. Sometimes I'll provide scripture references to it. Sometimes I won't, depending on the timeline I have. But normally what I'll use either John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was God, was with God, all was made through him and by him. And everything we see was made by the hand of God, who is the Word. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among men, right? He's the light and life of men, light shone in the darkness. Darkness couldn't overcome it. And then in verse 14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among men. And so I'll use that as hey, this is what I believe, that Jesus is God incarnate. He is the flesh of God himself. He is the flesh, the Son of God. He is truly God. He lived a perfect life, died, rose again on the third day for our sins, and it's through him we're set free. And then sometimes I'll use 2 Corinthians 5:21. He who knew no sin became sin on our behalf so that we might become the righteousness of God in him. God literally came to this world to take on sin for us. So I share that everywhere I go, and that resonates in Alabama because Alabama is truly a Christian conservative state. Yeah. And you hear politicians so often say they're Christians, but then their fruits don't actually show it. So at a minimum, I have to qualify that on the front end, and people appreciate that because we've always heard, oh, well, don't mix your religion and your politics. Well, that sounds cute and that sounds great, but the fact of the matter is, politics ain't eternal. Jesus Christ is. Jesus says, if you declare me before men, I'll declare you before my Father in heaven. So that's the first aspect of it. The second is I'm a 7th-generation Alabama family man. I have a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful little girls. And, the wise man plants trees, no one will ever sit in the shade. And my wife and I are planting trees, hoping that one day our kids get to sit in the shade and partake in the same great state and nation that we got to partake in and hopefully have even greater opportunities. And as a 7th-generation Alabama family man, raising my girls right here, that resonates with the people of Alabama because oftentimes we see politicians that's not them. They've been in career politics. Their families are kind of broken apart. I'm not saying that's anybody that I'm necessarily that's running against me, but I am saying that that's kind of the common thread that people see. They see infidelity. They see impropriety amongst the political elite and their families. So being a Christian conservative who's raising their family right here and who says that's my most important job on this earth. Christ is the most important because he's eternal, but my family is my most important job that God has given me on this earth. And then number 3, United States Navy SEAL sniper. Of course, Alabama loves that. I mean, you see bumper stickers around here everywhere, God bless our snipers. So being a SEAL sniper, a war fighter who's fought on foreign battlefields, a law enforcement officer fighting crime in our communities, and the CEO of a nonprofit that combats human trafficking, that has resonated across the state of Alabama in a way that I've even been very surprised about, with us being able to go out and tell our message and say, this is who Jared Hudson is. This is who you'll be electing. Because most of the time, people are electing an individual that they believe is going to represent them well, and the policy stuff is almost tertiary. On the policy side, though, we see affordability being a massive issue right now across the nation, but definitely in the state of Alabama. Everywhere I go and talk to people, that's the biggest thing they ask. They don't ask about all of the crazy stuff that we hear folks howling at the moon about. They might mention the stuff going on in Iran right now because it's, kind of a hot topic. But for the most part, everything revolves around affordability, and affordability as it relates to groceries, housing, and energy. And then sometimes healthcare is kind of a fourth thing that they'll mention, but grocery, housing, and energy. And so being able to talk and say, guys, as your next senator, I want to make sure that we decrease, and y'all understand this as financial guys, the ridiculous Washington policies that have elevated inflation. They've increased inflation, which right now we live in a time where it's almost hyperinflation, where everything costs so much more. Our dollar has been devalued over the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And we feel like we can't afford anything. We're flush with cash, but our cash doesn't do anything for us. And then also the ridiculous Washington policies that increase the overall cost of living. And it all ties together. We'll use energy as an example. During the Biden administration, we had ridiculous policies that killed American energy. And we see that going. We had American energy companies and pipelines invested, millions of dollars invested. Guess what? Hey, we're all done. We shut it down because of the ridiculous bureaucracy that says, hey, we can't do this anymore. Guys lose jobs. They have to go back home. You've got businesses that are millions of dollars invested in for a pipeline that's half finished, or maybe it was just getting started. Nice. And it's this stop and go process of Washington chaos that increases affordability for Alabama families, making sure that we cut those ridiculous policies that would end American energy dominance and allowing us the freedom to not have to rely on everybody else for our ability to produce energy, because part of the government's job is to create a free and fair market. And it's not a free and fair market if China is not having the same issues in producing energy that we're having here in America. So releasing American energy impacts groceries, housing, all of it across the board, especially groceries. I mean, look at diesel fuel in Alabama, $6 a gallon right now. Yeah. What is it where y'all are at? $6, $7 a gallon?
No, not diesel.
Diesel, yeah.
Diesel,
I
think it's around five and change.
In the five.
Yeah.
All right, so 5 and change. I think that's where we're at. I think I saw it today. We're at 569 down here. So, well, what do you think your groceries are going to be in the next month if we hold it at 570? It's going to go up. Making sure that we unleash American energy so that we're not dependent on all of these other countries. And right now, we're not necessarily dependent on the oil that's coming through the straits, but the oil that's going through the straits impact global market prices. That's why we see the up and down. Hey, we got a ceasefire. We ain't got a ceasefire because it's impacting global markets. So untying us from all of these, 50 years of bad foreign and domestic policy that have increased our overall cost of living, that's been the biggest thing that people in Alabama have talked about and that resonates with Alabama. The last thing I'll leave you with is, as a Christian conservative, I'm extremely pro-life. Life begins at conception. Part of being pro-life is being pro-family and making sure that mommy and daddy can afford to take care of the kids. Now, we all have kids, and we know it'll never work out on paper being able to take care of kids, right? They're expensive as all get out, especially me with 3 little girls. With that being said, we don't need affordability to be the excuse that people are able to use not to choose life, not to choose not to have a family. We have got to take that away. And right now, Washington policies have regulated the American family, in my case, the Alabama's family, away from being able to provide in the way that they're supposed to live the American dream, regardless of what your zip code is.
Yeah, you bring up a bunch of good points, but I think that kind of leads into some things that I was kind of curious about. Number one is, what are the duties of a senator? Because I honestly, before this show, I didn't really know. So I found a few things. It looks like having an impact on voting for the federal budget, shaping tax law, confirming key financial appointments like the chair of the SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, which is important to us, as well as the Federal Reserve. And you talked about a few key components with respect to the current state of the economy. Where do you see things going?
Well, right now, I mean, if we just look at the last, since 1960, $1 in 1960 is $11 now. I think that's roughly about what we've seen in the devaluation of our dollar. Right now, we're the world currency, and with what's going on with Iran, with the fight against the petrodollar, with what's going on with China, China's waging a war on us via the proxy of Iran. Iran's waging a war on us, has been for 50 years, or the IRGC via the proxy of Hezbollah, Houthis, Hamas, all of the above, even the Taliban and Al Qaeda. So we have all these people waging proxy wars, but China is the real enemy, and the war they're waging on us is an economic war, right? So one of the biggest things that we've seen is over the last, longer than I've been alive, the last 50 years, I'm 40 years old, I look back and I see if we continue this trajectory, my kids will not be able to own a home. I go back to what I said earlier on. The wise man plants trees, no one will never sit in the shade. My kids won't be able to own a home if we continue this trajectory. Right now, the largest inflation driver in the United States of America, outside of now our more recent large-scale conflict or war with Iran, everybody would say, oh, this is a new war. It's not. It's been going on since 1979. This is not a new war. I believe this is the Trump administration's promise to end forever wars, because this has been going on for 50 years, 47 years.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, we know that war is inflationary in nature. It's a massive driver of inflation issue. And y'all would know more than that just on the financial side. But let's set that aside. The largest driver of inflation is not quantitative easing, like a lot of people will howl at the moon about, especially some of those that we see in Congress. It's not quantitative easing. Printing money is a big portion of it. But one of the bigger issues is the housing market. The housing market caused the supply and demand issues that we're seeing. That is the largest driver of inflation in the United States of America right now. And we've got a scourge of illegal immigration that has impacted our country as a whole, not just the state of Alabama, everybody across our country, where we have a large demand for single family homes, and it's all going away. Now, it's not just illegal immigration. It's not just legal immigration that's creating that problem. It's also big corporations and foreign adversaries that are swooping in and they're buying single family homes, single family farms. And the Trump administration recently pushed an executive order to end the ability for corporations to purchase single family dwellings. Hey, our single family homes are for families. And making sure that we codify legislation like that will impact the overall inflation issues that we're seeing, that if we don't deal with now, the ship will sink before my kids are able to own a home. And we'll be a large scale Venezuela that we saw take place by the mid 2000s, maybe 2010, 2011. Was that around the time frame that we saw Venezuela really take a nosedive from all of the issues that they faced? And you go all the way back to Nazi Germany. It got to the point where they had wheelbarrows of cash because their dollar was so devalued, and they couldn't even get a gallon of milk for it. So impacting the things that impact that, and the reason we're running into it now is because we have regulated, the U.S. government has regulated the American people out of existence, the American small business out of existence. The last thing I'll leave you with on that is just a way that you can impact it. You've got, everybody talks about it, I know y'all have heard about it, you've got the issue of foreign adversaries and even foreign partners coming in and buying American land, right? Everybody talks about China buying American land and American farms. Are y'all familiar with what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That happens all over.
Dave, this has been happening during COVID. I got calls on my rental properties from I don't even know who offering me money that was 1.5 times what it was actually worth.
Yeah.
So there you go. So let's keep a pin on that right there, because we'll come back to it in a second. In Alabama, what we see, my granddaddy, I come from a family of farmers, specialty crop farmers. My uncle still has a blueberry farm. My granddaddy doesn't really farm as much anymore. He only does about 6 acres of his, but he's got a 50-acre farm. Let's say that's valued at $1 million. Let's just say, for easy math, $1 million for his 50-acre farm and house. Up until the big beautiful bill, which had stuff in it that people were happy about and that people were upset about, but up until the big beautiful bill that bumped it to $15 million, if he was to die, just the estate tax alone, the inheritance tax or the death tax, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yep.
If me and my wife inherited my granddaddy's farm, it would be my uncle and my mom and his kids. But let's say me and my wife inherited it, which is common. We see this happening all over Alabama. We inherited that $1 million farm, or that perceived value of $1 million. That's just what the government says it's valued at. we owe $350,000 to $400,000 of a tax burden to receive that farm. Can we afford that? I can tell you right now, we ain't got $350,000 to $400,000 cash lying around to pay for a farm that we're not working on, that we're not using, that is not in my line of work. And this is happening all over our state. This happened all over the nation. Family dies, or the parents die, right? And the kids inherit something. When the kids inherit it, they're not using it to make a living anymore, and they're left with the burden that the federal government put on them just to receive what their parents worked for and paid taxes on their whole life. So what happens? Go back to what you just said. You've got people calling you, offering you 1.5 times the value of the property. What happens when they know we can't afford it? Well, some corporation, somebody from our Chinese adversaries, they call and they say, hey, we know that farm is valued at $1 million. We're going to give you $1.5 million. I'm already between a rock and a hard place, figuring out a way to come up with $350,000, $400,000. Well, boom, we're going to be flush with cash. Yeah, absolutely. Where do we sign? We sell it, we move on. And now we just sold a single family home and a farm that the community relied on for a long time to a foreign adversary. And why did we do it? We did it because the government regulated that farm, regulated my family out of existence because we can't afford the tax burden on it. Yeah. And that's one of the things we see. So we don't even need to tell people who they can or can't sell their stuff to. That's what everybody wants to go with. No, I got an idea. Let the government, or get the government to stop regulating. She talked about taxes. I've never seen a country or a nation in the history of the world taxed into prosperity.
Yeah.
Now, there is some level of taxes that we have to pay, and it's for the government to provide the 3 things the federal government's supposed to provide: protection of the citizens, their constitutional rights, or God-given rights; infrastructure, right, our roads, our bridges, and the infrastructure we see across this nation; and maintain a free and fair market from other entities within the United States of America and our state, but also against foreign enterprise. Yeah. Those are the 3 things the federal government's supposed to do. They're not supposed to tax the citizenry for what they inherit. They're not supposed to continue to burden the citizens with a tax code that is so cumbersome that it pushes middle-class families out of existence just simply because they have a spending problem. We don't have a money problem right now. We have a spending problem. We're $40 trillion in debt. We know that. But instead of looking at the 30,000-foot view of $40 trillion in debt, how do we fix it? Well, it's not one smoking gun. How do you eat an elephant? You talked about the elephant in the room earlier. Well, we eat an elephant one bite at a time. And how do we take that bite out? Well, I got an idea. Stop sending $40 million a week to the Taliban, to humanitarian aid in Afghanistan, where we gave the country back over to the Taliban.
Yeah.
We stop sending $40 million a week to them. That would help the American taxpayer out. Sure. Bring that money back to invest in our infrastructure, and then stop taking that money from the citizens. Or how about the Leering Centers in Minnesota? $20 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse through SNAP benefits. Yeah. We need to reevaluate our welfare program. Reevaluate the medical subsidies that we offer to illegal immigrants and people all over this nation who could be working, but they're not working. Make sure that we reevaluate the private business that is allowing our European allies and Canada and all the others the ability to pay pennies for drug costs while we subsidize the overall drug costs here in the United States of America. That's the favored nations executive order that Trump pushed that would probably be good to codify, which protects us, not the Trump RX thing. This is a separate from it. It's a more focused version, but making sure that we don't force the American taxpayer or the American consumer to subsidize things for everybody else under the sun, because we cannot hold up to that burden, especially right now. And our kids will not have the same opportunities or better opportunities than what we have if we don't fix it now. And that's what a U.S. Senator can be involved in and be a part of. And it's more than howling at the moon. That's what a lot of these guys do, howl at the moon. We can't spend another dollar. What do we know the government's going to do? They're going to spend another dollar, making sure that we get those dollars that are being spent allocated to what we need. In my case, as an Alabama Christian conservative, in y'all's case, is New York conservatives, making sure that we elect officials who are willing to bring back and allocate that money to our infrastructure, to invest in our education, to invest in our states and our nation, as opposed to everywhere else in the world.
Well, Jared, you did mention the big beautiful bill, and for all the people that don't like Trump and whatever, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, especially up in New York. I mean, we're the minority when it comes to election time from a conservative standpoint. But you look at a couple of things just off the cuff that benefited your average blue collar citizen in this country. You're talking tax-free tips up to, was it $25,000? Tax-free tips.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was 25,000. Yeah.
Well, wealthy people don't get tips. Like blue collar citizens. Those are the people that get tips. Overtime, tax-free overtime. These are things that, and I know that there was a lot in the legislation that helps wealthy people, but Democrat or Republican alike, in my opinion, they're going to take care of their own people. That's just how human nature is, if you will. But in my opinion,
well, look at the tax incentives. Look at the tax incentives that were going to go away if they didn't get something across the line for regular American families.
Crazy.
Yeah.
For regular guys like Jared Hudson, or the guys that we have subcontracting that are law enforcement officers or military members working to do this anti-human trafficking work.
Yeah.
We're regular families that make between, we make a good living. We're taken care of, make between $60,000 and $140,000 a year, right? Depending on what you do. And that's an average American family. The reason I go up to 140, most people have two incomes, right? So if I make $60,000 or $70,000 a year as a cop and my wife makes $50,000 a year as a nurse, okay, we're making 110, 120. God's taking care of us and blessing us, but it's not like we're being able to do a lot of extra things. That's enough to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And when you have a home, now a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in the state of Alabama, about $400,000 average. The average interest rate right now is between 6 and probably 7.5%. I don't know. It kind of fluctuates, but for a home, for a 30-year mortgage, and you got to come up with a 20% down payment. So now at $400,000, if I'm going to buy that home, I've got to come up with $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
And once I come up with $80,000, then I'm going to have to pay 8% interest on $360,000 on a salary between my wife and I, let's say $120,000, $130,000 a year. And that's two family members working, which means we're going to have childcare, which means our kids are going to have to be dealt with, or mom and dad's going to have to help. So this is what regular everyday families are dealing with across the board. And it's not that we can't deal with it, but we have a generation of people that believe the lie, live the lie. Oh, I made $9 an hour and I lived comfortably in 1970 or 1980. Well, you know what? Yeah, y'all are the ones who squandered everything we had because we elected officials with bad domestic and foreign policy that have led us to the point where we are living under such a devalued dollar that you can't make ends meet. Because you also didn't have to cover childcare. Mama could stay at home with the kids if she wanted to. Does that make sense? It's just a different time. And I'm not saying that previous generations were bad because of what they did or how they did. I'm just saying it's different now.
Yeah.
It's like no matter how hard you work, you can't get your head above water. That's what families feel like because you can't afford anything. Yeah. You can't afford groceries to feed the kids.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared, I guess I would ask you, and I know you've been asked this a million times, how does being a SEAL, your experience with the Navy SEALs, how does that help you when you get into Washington? What are you doing?
Well, yeah, I mean, for one, if we look at after World War II, I want to say 70% of our legislators right after World War II were combat veterans. And you look at us after World War II, I know we had the big industrial base, production, military industrial complex, but we see the golden age of America coming after on the heels of 70% of our legislator being combat veterans. I'm not saying that, every legislator we have needs to be a combat veteran, but now we look at it and it's only like 14 or 15% of our legislator is combat veterans. Mm-hmm. I do think that's one thing because combat veterans have proven that they're willing to even give their life for this country. And it's important when you're electing somebody into a position of service, which is what it is. It's service for the people, not service for self. And I think over the last 40 or 50 years, we've seen politicians, elected officials who go to serve themselves as opposed to the people they're elected to represent. I would say that's the biggest thing that separates me is as a SEAL, as a warfighter, I'm still willing to give my life for this nation. It's important that we elect somebody who's willing to give their last breath so that you can take your next. And that is something that is different than what we generally see with most of our representatives, whether on the House side, on the Senate side, even if you go to the executive branch or even on the judicial side, not elected officials, a lot of them are appointed they're all appointed by the elected official that we put in place. But with that being said, making sure that we put officials in place who are truly serving the people. The second thing is, as a SEAL, it didn't matter if we agreed with each other on anything. If I was mad, I mean, we got in fights all the time, man. We got fist fights with dudes. We'd fight Connex boxes. We'd knock each other. I mean, that's what we did. Didn't matter. But we were friends. We were buddies, and we knew the mission, right? It doesn't matter how mad I am at one of the guys in my platoon or in my task unit or at the team or at the squadron. It doesn't matter how mad I am at these guys. If we're deployed, this is the mission. We have to complete this mission regardless of our differences. And I think that that's one of the things that most of our legislators miss. They've never worked in that capacity. They don't understand the idea of completing the mission. And what's the mission? Well, as a senator from Alabama, the mission is the people of Alabama and putting Alabama first. Now, for the United States of America, how does that benefit the United States of America? If I put Alabama first and I make Alabama the greatest state and the greatest nation on the face of the planet, what are we going to do? We're going to elevate the United States of America. And as one of 100, I can positively impact every other state because I'm working to positively impact my state. Understanding the mission and understand that the mission is not for you to get on TV. It's not to make a backroom deal with a special interest group. It's not to stand on the shoulders of giants and claim that I'm flying. The mission is not to elevate Jared Hudson. The mission is to deliver for the people that I'm elected to represent. The mission is to deliver for Alabama and the United States of America. And as a SEAL, we understand and how to complete a mission. Come hell or high water, jail or death, we're going to complete the mission. And we're going to complete it well. And I think that we need that in our legislature, in all of politics, but definitely in the legislative branch desperately right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely touched on a few things that I was going to kind of lead into, which was asking you how you could help improve the economy, what you're going to be doing, and your role as a Senate leader. And I know you touched on a few things. I'm curious. I don't know that much about Alabama, but it seems though aerospace, auto, bioscience, metals, advanced materials, things like that might be booming in your area. And you talked about the economic strain on people from gas to groceries and things like that. How do you see your influence being able to impact that in a positive way?
Yeah, well, I would say the biggest thing is as a senator, bringing back what you just talked about. We have big on aerospace industry. We've got a naval town in Mobile. The Coast Guard just came back to their Coast Guard training facility was just put. I say came back to. We have Coast Guard South Alabama, but at the Birmingham Southern facility. So we have a lot of economic revitalization going on in our state. The tariffs that have been pushed and been hard. It's been hard on people that I'm close to, family members, the farmers, because tariffs have impacted farmers greatly. However, it's bringing production back. We see in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, there's a large facility that used to do railway carts that's now going to be developing or be building the sub pods for our submarines and part of the Golden Fleet initiative that Trump is pushing. Those jobs left in the 2000s to go to Mexico. Well, now they've come back to Alabama in a community that desperately needs it. Etowah County, where I'm originally from, where my family's from, I had a great-granddaddy, a granddaddy, and uncles, all that worked at the Old Republic Steel Mill. Well, it's been an eyesore in that community since about 2000 when those jobs went overseas. They were gone. Foreign company bought it. They moved it out. And economically, that was a drain on that area of Gadsden and of Etowah County. Well, guess what? Senator Katie Britt just went in, cut the red tape on a new project that's going to be a car part production, car part manufacturing that's coming right there to the Old Republic Steel Mill. So there's a lot of economic revitalization going on. We're a number one exporter or producer and exporter in vehicles because we have all of these car productions, whether it's Mercedes, Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, all over the state of Alabama. Continuing to invest in Alabama in our workforce education, continuing to invest in our workforce so that we can fulfill these jobs, which puts more money in Alabamians and Alabama families' pockets. So that is one way to do it, continuing to bring back this production for Alabama so that we have jobs. On the other side, investing in our education so that we don't just have a we don't have a jobs problem. We have a workforce education problem. We don't just have to bring in people from all over the place, from all outside of the state of Alabama or even outside of this nation to work the jobs that are needed to be worked right now. We educate our workforce so that they can go in and work those jobs, and then continue to invest in our infrastructure, one of the primary roles of the government. We have a national security nexus because of the aerospace industry in Redstone Arsenal in North Alabama. We've got the Air Wing in Birmingham. South of that, we've got Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery. You split off from there and go to the Wiregrass. You've got Fort Rucker training all of our Little Bird and Black Hawk pilots. And then you've got the fastest growing port in North America, the largest port in the Gulf of America in Mobile. And all of the things that connect that, whether it's the I-10 Bayway Bridge in South Alabama, whether it's 565 in North Alabama, I-65 through the center of Alabama, 2059 going east to west out to Fort Benning in Georgia, or Fort McClellan on the east side of Alabama, and then the University of Alabama, which is supporting the UAS initiative out of Huntsville, making sure that we develop our infrastructure to match the national security nexus that's supporting the security across the nation and tying bases together, not just in the state of Alabama, but all across the Southeast. Bringing back for that and making sure that our dollars don't go to stupid things like transgender studies in sub-Saharan Africa, making sure that it's coming back here to develop our infrastructure, that drives investment and that elevates our way of life. So even when you're dealing with hyperinflation or inflation and the overall cost of living that's impacting families, because you have families that are putting more money in their pockets, it makes that burden a little bit easier while we try to do the harder thing of decreasing these ridiculous policies that have made inflation go through the roof and our overall cost of living go through the roof, over the last 40 or 50 years.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite
that and $5 to get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I don't drink coffee from Starbucks because I'm not a liberal, but y'all are from New York, so I figured y'all might.
Yeah, we'll be at Starbucks. There's one right down the road, brother. Hey, there's one right down the road. We'll be there later.
That's what I'm talking about.
Just to transition over to the personal side, and we don't want to take up too much more of your time here, Jared. We appreciate it. One thing that stuck out to me is like Jared Hudson, the person that I think if people can get to know, that's to me the clutch. That's when you called me. Was it 2 years ago, year and a half ago, when you were kind of talking about this? You're like, Dave, am I crazy to potentially run for the U.S. Senate? And it was
about a year ago, almost a year ago to date. Yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of hashed down. It's like, if the Lord has this in your path, like, you're the right candidate because you're not seeking this for political, like for your own power, for your own gain, but you're trying to do the right thing, the godly thing. When we were in Africa, and in the morning we'd wake up, I do my daily devotional, my reading, and I look over, and you have the Bible out, and you have paper, like a booklet, and you're just writing in it. And I asked you, I was like, Jared, what are you doing over there? Like, can you just kind of talk about what you do for your daughters in regards to the Bible? I thought it was amazing, truthfully.
Yeah, and so since then I've completed it for all of my daughters, and I have one that's kind of partially completed for my wife, but and I'm doing one for a buddy's daughter now. He asked me, "Hey, would you do one for my daughter?" She'll turn 16 in August, so I'm trying to finish one in about a 6-month time period for her, so I have it for her 16th birthday. But basically, all I do is I'll take a copy of the Bible, and I do the Bible. Normally, it takes me about a year. 10 months is the quickest I've done it. If I finish this young lady's, I'll have done it in about 6 or 7 months. But yeah. I go through the whole Bible and I write a commentary on it. And it's not, I say commentary loosely. It's not really a commentary. It might be. I might tie other scriptures together and just give kind of a breakdown, or it might be what I'm personally going through, what dad is going through at this point in time, and how this scripture has spoken to me. And so I write that for my daughters on every chapter of the Bible. So it might not be every verse of the Bible or every word, but every chapter I will write something that stands out to me, that impacts me in my life, or I'll write something that we need to tie to other scripture to make it understandable. Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, I do that for the entire Bible. And I write my girls a commentary, and I write them a note in it. And then I pray for that specific, I pray for all my girls every day, but I pray for that specific daughter as I do that. And so I've done, like I said, I've done 3 of those for my 3 girls. I'm working on one for a buddy's daughter right now for her 16th birthday. And I want to do some for my nieces and nephews when I get the opportunity. I'll just keep doing that. And that's part of my Bible study is it gives me the ability to get in the Word, but it also gives me the ability to leave something to the next generation who are going to have to, as long as the Lord doesn't come back, right? I pray that he comes back every day. Would love for him to come back as we're talking right now. But as long as the Lord tarries, this gives the next generation what they need to carry on and to make sure that they continue to proclaim who he is and what he's done. It's what God called Israel to do. Tell this story. Tell the story about being delivered from Egypt. Tell the story about the Red Sea. Tell the story about water from the rock. Tell the story about what I have done for you so that your generations after you don't forget it. And it's important that we do that. So that's what I do for my kids.
How long do they end up being? I mean, that's a lot of time and effort.
I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it takes, say, like I said, the quickest I've done it, I think was 10 months. It took me for one of my daughters, it took me a year and 1 month, but, and it's just I get a notebook, it's about that thick. And then I have a Bible. Most of the time it's ESV. For my buddy's daughter, I got her a New King James version. Cause you've got a word for word translation, which would be ESV or New King James. And then you've got a thought for thought translation, which is like the NIV or some of the other translators, or like a CSB, a Christian Standard Bible. Those would probably be more thought based. Hey, we're translating the thought. I like the word for word translation because I'm putting my thoughts into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it takes it's not a lot because my thoughts are few and far between.
How many pages does it end up being?
I'd have to go look at the book. I mean, it's definitely a couple hundred pages. I would say probably 400-ish pages.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite, maybe 350 pages. I don't know. That's just me guessing on the thickness of the book. I've never counted the pages. But it's a notebook, and it's just a notebook. You order them on Amazon, like a leather bound notebook that is about a 500-page notebook, and I almost fill it up completely.
But you customize it.
It might be a 600-page notebook.
Each one of your girls. So like for your 3 girls, like you customized one book for each.
Yeah, I did one. I've done one for each one, the oldest down to the youngest, and I just finished the youngest one last year. Did one for my wife that's kind of partially done, and then doing one right now for my buddy's daughter that is customized specifically to her.
It's all handwritten.
All handwritten, yeah.
Wow.
All handwritten.
That's pretty crazy.
That's off to you, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Jared,
it's
yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying it's a great thing to leave to your kids, to your grandkids, to your posterity. It's something that goes beyond you, and what better thing to leave them than the Word of God and how it was impacting you in your life at that moment in time. That's all it is.
Amen. That's wonderful, man. And
I'll give you a real world example. I'll give you a real world example quickly on some of the thoughts, so maybe the listeners and y'all can understand what I mean. Like. One time, very in particular, and it was, I think it was a story in 1 Kings, if I remember right, and it's just a random story, and it's about Elijah, who is hiding from Jezebel, and when he's hiding from Jezebel and hiding from her husband, the king, he says. And I forget the king's name off the top of my head right now. But the king who is wicked goes and asks the god Dagon, right? The god of the Amorites, I believe. But he asks the god Dagon, or gets somebody, one of his minions, to go and ask the god Dagon if he will win or lose a battle that he's going out to fight. Mm-hmm. And Elijah comes and meets him, and he says, "Is there not a God in Israel that you could have asked, and you had to go and ask Dagon?" Mm-hmm. He says, "Is there not a God in Israel?" Now, nobody thinks much of that. That's a random story in the Bible that, okay, don't seek other gods. Don't put another God before me. Don't put an idol before me. We see that in the 10 Commandments. Yep. But we see a king of Israel doing that, Jezebel's husband. Jezebel was a wicked woman, right? And we see all of that going down in that time with Elijah. Comes out and says that. And here's the thing that impacted me the most. And I wrote this in one of my daughters at the time. And the Lord broke my heart and my spirit for this, because there was something that I knew I was supposed to do within my business, and it was one of those things that you can cut it 10 different ways from Sunday, and you do all the math and you do all the, hey, this is what it quantifies out to be, and this is what I should do. But the Lord told me to do something specifically. And I was struggling with it because what I'd worked out on paper did not work out in reality. But in reality, I was supposed to do something else. And I hadn't done it yet. I hadn't conducted what we were going to do. And I just went into, we got Grok and Chat GPT and all that. So I just went in Chat GPT. Hey, this is the problem. This is the formula I'm running. What should I do? And Chat GPT laid it out for me. Now, this was the night before I read this story in the Bible. And I want to tell you, want to talk about the Lord breaking your heart. Because immediately from that story that had nothing to do with Jared Hudson, it's a story of Elijah going and saying, is there not a God in Israel that you have to go to the God of Dagon? Yeah. And the Lord broke my heart and said, is there not a God that lives inside of you? Have I not spoken to you that you have to go to the God of Chat GPT, the God of AI, to get your answer for what I've already told you to do? Sure. And you want to talk about breaking your heart. Buddy, I was prostrate before the Lord. Forgive me, God. I'm repenting before you because I told my team that here in the business. I told the team that. I said, this is what I did. I want to apologize to all of y'all because this is what we're going to do. And I know it full tilt now, but I sought an answer from something other than God, even though I knew what answer God was supposed to give me. So I put that in their book. So that would be how that one scripture, and I wrote it down, impacted their dad at this one time in his life. And it's got a date on it, and it's got the chapter, and it's got the one thing that stood out in the chapter, and that was it. Yeah. It had to do with the seeking of another God. And so those are the things I'll put in there. But then also on the other side of it, it's just like when you see that Ham uncovered Noah's nakedness, right? It said he uncovered the nakedness of his father. Yep. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, it tells us later in Exodus when God's given out the law in Exodus and Leviticus, what's uncovering nakedness of your father, that's a sexual sin. So we see that it's more than him just busting in on his father laid in the bed naked and drunk like we oftentimes think of. Yeah. No, there was a sexual sin that took place that caused Ham to be cursed, right? And so, putting that in there and making sure we tie that story to the law given by God to show us that, hey, this is a little more than just, I accidentally saw dad naked when he was drunk. No, there was something deeper here. That's kind of what I do with this, when I write these things down, these thoughts down. Sometimes I'll tie it to scripture to answer a question that comes up. And sometimes it will be about something like what I just told y'all that impacts Jared personally, that my girls will one day get to see the God that their dad worshiped and see the relationship that I have with Christ, because I don't care if they remember anything else about me. I want them to love the Jesus that I loved. I want them to know the Jesus that I know.
Amen. Amen. Dude, that's
man
wonderful.
Of passion.
Yeah, absolutely. For the record, I don't think we can ask you anything with a quick answer, for the record.
There you go. Yeah. I'm from Alabama,
Yeah. But you're thorough to say the least, Jared. Two things real quick, and we will let you go. Number one, Monarch Wealth Management, because of people like you, Jared, we've really been thinking, how can we benefit our military, first responders, active military veterans. And so we've come up with a program, and we'll post a link and stuff in the future, that gives people looking for financial help that are first responders and military members, active and veterans, a discount on some of our services, but also some of the features that our high net worth clients have that they'll have access to, regardless of their balances, regardless of what they're trying to do, just to help our first responders, the people that dedicate their lives to protecting and keeping us safe. We want to keep them safe financially. So people like you, Jared, are the people that motivated us to kind of have that program in place, if that makes sense.
Oh man, I think that's awesome, and you know what, good on y'all for doing that. We sleep in peace at night because others do violence on our behalf, and more so than do violence on our behalf, they're willing to give their life on our behalf. So the simple fact that y'all are willing and able to do that, y'all are taking the blessings that God has given y'all, and y'all are passing it down, and y'all are supporting those who might not, financially, it might not make sense for y'all, but you're doing it because people from the veteran community, people from the first responder community, they're not doing their job because they make a lot of money. They're doing their job because they truly want to serve the people of their community, of their state, and of this nation. So I think that's phenomenal that you're doing it. And I can tell you right now, as a guy who is a veteran of the armed forces, as a guy who is a law enforcement officer and a first responder, I can tell you that it's very much appreciated and it's very much needed in our community, because for those of us that don't have a lot of money, we do want to leave something for our kids or have something for our future, and what y'all are doing are helping out with that. So thank you.
Least we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we did start off earlier, before we started, were you talking about some personal records, 225 clean? Are you doing some cleans?
Oh yeah.
Talking about lifting
Oh,
now.
no, that ain't no personal record. No, I mean, I don't want to, let's not embarrass. I don't want to embarrass myself over here, but we do it for reps, you know.
Yeah. How many you get?
Do it for reps. But no, if you're out lifting and you're still doing cleans and you can't clean at least 225 for 10, and you can drop the weight, take about a 5-second breath between it. You don't have to hold the bar the whole time. I'm not holding some crazy standard.
Yeah.
If you can't do 225 for at least 10, just stop doing cleans. You're a victim. You gotta be able to move some weight. And you started rolling and doing jiu-jitsu, and that's one of the things. Oh, jiu-jitsu worked for everybody. Now let me go ahead and tell you, all these dudes. That's why you go to a jiu-jitsu tournament and you see all these dudes, and they're all a bunch of roided out freaks. They're all a bunch of humongous dudes that are super strong. If jiu-jitsu worked as good as they say it works, these dudes wouldn't be 240. It's like Jocko. Oh, jiu-jitsu, a 110-pound girl can work it. Nah, Jocko, you're 240 pounds, bro.
Sure.
That's why you're doing work.
Well, let me ask you this. Out of all the martial arts, what do you think the best martial art is? If you had to pick one.
If I had to pick one, I would say jiu-jitsu. Now striking, hey, if you working striking is good. You need to work striking, but jiu-jitsu is something that, I can't explain how it works. You can really get yourself, you can really push yourself to the limit, and it puts you in unbelievably uncomfortable positions, and it starts helping reset or rewire your brain to where you don't just give up as soon as you feel like you can't breathe. You start working those positions. I think jiu-jitsu is probably the best across the board. Collegiate level wrestling, like collegiate style wrestling, I think is very good too. Obviously, we wrestled in high school and did some of that. But one of those two, but jiu-jitsu is definitely, in my opinion, the martial art that probably across the board. Maybe judo. I mean, you can put judo in there as well. Maybe a mix of judo and jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu is really good.
We got a guy that is, I think he's a brown belt in judo, and now he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And I'm sweating up a storm, and this guy is so calm and just like, he's like folding.
Bro, I'm sweating even thinking about it. Seriously, that is a unbelievably healthy mix, right?
Yeah.
And it, because it just, it's like it rewires your brain to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's what jiu-jitsu does. And judo, the leverage it teaches you, throws, taking people to the ground, it's unreal. So I would say, jiu-jitsu, and then probably a judo base is very good.
But then pairing that with some sort of striking, you definitely need striking, like I always say it wrong, Muay Thai.
Yeah, Muay Thai is good. I never did Muay Thai. I had buddies that did it. Man, their shins were like, concrete poles and pillars. Those guys. I mean, they had some really tough legs, especially their shins. Any striking, boxing, just anything that works some striking, so you have a little bit of a striking game, is a game changer. But jiu-jitsu and judo, I would lean primarily to jiu-jitsu or collegiate level wrestling. Yeah. And then judo. I mean, that's what we worked in the SEAL teams. We worked jiu-jitsu. It was Jocko was the one who put it in place at TradeEt when I was over there. He was one. I mean, we worked jiu-jitsu, some judo base to kind of help us with leveraging and throws with body armor and stuff on, and then basic striking. That mixed with being in decent shape, working out, and being strong and semi-fit, you'll be fine anything you run into.
Yeah, awesome, man. Const, anything from you?
No, I guess, well, to kind of wrap the show up and button it up a little bit, number one, how can people find out more about you? Is that going directly to the site, HudsonForAlabama.com? Is that where the place to go?
Yeah, HudsonForAlabama.com. That's the website for the Senate stuff. So go on there, like, share, and follow. Check out what we got going on social media. And if you want to support financially, anything like that, that would be great. But if you're in Alabama and you're listening to this, get out and vote on May 19th, because that is the Republican primary. May 19th is where your next senator for the state of Alabama will be decided.
Awesome.
You
Jared.
heard it first.
Yeah. Jared, always a pleasure, brother. Love catching up with you. Love hearing everything that's going on. Continue to pray for you and your family. I look forward to you being the next senator for Alabama, brother. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. It's an honor being with y'all today.
Thank you.
Great to talk. Thanks again, and best of luck. We'll be watching.
Thanks, brother.
You've been listening to PennyWise Financial, brought to you by Monarch Wealth Management. Constantine and David really care about their clients. They want to make sure you're happy, so you'll continue to hire them. There's no commitments, and clients are free to leave whenever they want. Think about being able to pick up the phone and call someone for guidance and advice on almost anything, from buying a car, selling a home, buying vacation properties, or even selling a business. Reach out on the website at monarchwealthmanagement.com. There are 2 offices in Rochester and 2 offices in Buffalo. Reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, or call us toll-free at 800-480-1580. That's 800-480-1580. Until next time, this is PennyWise Financial, signing off.
The opinions voiced in this program are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, and SIPC.